The Keno Davis Radio Show all season long on Sports Radio 103.7 WEEI FM.
Go.
Everybody, we welcome you to Waterplace Restaurant for this edition of the Keno Davis Radio Show on Sports Radio 103.7 WEEI FM. Our next edition with the head coach of the Providence College Friars, Keno Davis. I'm John Rook. Coach, it's great to have you back again, and let's see if we can't get this thing started, right?
It sounds good.
Let's kind of take stock of where we are at this stage of the game. 7-4 at the semester exam break. Team has had time off since last Saturday. We'll play again this coming Monday against Yale in the last non-conference game of the year. I know it sounds like it'd probably be pretty easy to say, are you happy or are you disappointed with where you are at this stage of the game? Might be a little bit predictable. So let me ask you this from a little bit different perspective. In terms of growth, in terms of knowing what you had before the season as opposed to knowing what you have right now, are you pleased with the progress? Is there a lot of work still to come?
Well, both.
Okay.
I'm pleased with the progress. I also know that with such a young team, there's a lot of work to be done. One of our first meetings with the team, in fact, our first meeting was talking about last year's team compared to this year's team. And I talked about offense, I talked about defense, I talked about rebounding, and I said there's no reason to believe that you can't be better in all three areas. I know I talked to our season ticket holders out here as well at a great function that we had and talked about we could be better in all three areas. If we were to win our next game, we would have the same record in the non-conference that our last year's team had, and we would score more points, we would hold our opponents to a lower field goal percentage, and we would double our rebounding total from a +4 rebounding margin to an 8.2. I think with such a young team, understanding that we're only going to get better, I would take that right away. And I think, you just understand that you lose a tough game, people are going to be down. You win a game, everybody's going to, jump on the bandwagon. And you understand we have to go for the long haul and not get too high or too low during the season, knowing we're a work in progress. We're going to surprise some people. At other times, it's not going to be a finished product. But I really love our kids' effort. That's what we've been focused on all year long, from the off season to throughout the season. Into next year. I think if kids play as hard as you can expect in practice and in games, you're only going to see improvement.
All right, we're going to jump into some of those numbers in a little bit because I think if you weren't already aware, if you follow the Friars at all, follow Big East basketball at all, if you weren't already aware, there are some pretty good numbers as far as individuals are concerned and as far as the team is concerned when it stacks up against the other players and the other schools from in the Big East. We'll jump into that in just a couple of moments. Let me remind the fans, though, to come on down here to the Keno Davis Show at Waterplace Restaurant. We're on One Finance Way here in Providence, downtown Providence. You'll have a chance to win some tickets when the Friars host Yale coming up this next Monday night, December the 21st. And you have a chance to win tickets to see the Friars play Louisville on January the 6th. But you got to come down here to register. So we're, again, Waterplace Restaurant on One Finance Way here in Providence. So we'll be doing that throughout the course of the evening. Now, at 7-4, I mean, as you just kind of suggested, one more win gets you to where you were exactly last year through non-conference play with a younger team. Has this team, and this is sort of a two-parter, and I hate to ask two-part questions, so I apologize for that.
All right, you'll have to remind me
I'll write down the second part if I have
very
to.
Good, very
but,
good.
Knowing that your makeup for this team is younger than what it was last year, how much more difficult is it for you to impart upon them the importance of coming out to play with high energy, high emotion from the start, especially when you know you need to play that to be successful, and balance that with the fact that Big East games continually are a grind, and once you get into the mid-January, mid-February type of the schedule, it's going to start to beat down on them. How do you prepare them for that?
Well, that's a good question. I think the first thing I would say is with such a young team, it might be easier to get them to play hard, for them to practice and stay intense for those games. On the other side, you understand when you're going into the Big East with such a young team, you're going to, take your knocks, and you're going to have some tough games on there that you can play as well and as hard as you can, and you're just going to end up on the wrong end of things. And so we've got to be able to, when we win a big game or we lose a tough one, to be able to come back and practice the next day and have a short memory and come back and keep working as hard as we can possibly work.
Okay. Let's kind of simplify things a little bit. Out of the 7 wins thus far, what's the best win?
Well,
I mean, I know they're all good, but at the same time, though, which one did you feel like this team accomplished perhaps as close to what you really think that their potential is?
You know, I think that's a good question. Possibly our game.
Thank you. That's my job, by the way.
Well, not often that you kind of stump me there and make me think. But
wow, I like that.
I think in our game against Vermont, although it might not have been the best opponent, you look, they've had a very good record afterwards. And I said after that game, even though we played about as good a basketball as we could, that I said that's a good team that we just beat. You know, they got one of the best players. They got a player of Vermont to start for us.
Yeah.
And so when you see that team's going to be somebody that's going to be competing to be in the NCAA tournament, it won't surprise me at all. You see Northeastern go up and almost beat URI. They've had a tough road because of their schedule, but they're going to improve. But I thought we played about as good a game early in the season against Vermont as possible.
All right, let's flip that to the other side then. Out of the 4 losses, which one has been the most excruciating?
Well, I think the toughest one was the loss to Iona, and I think our fans are going to agree with that. And the toughest thing for me as a coach is, you know, as I've been able to review the tape and look back, I'm not quite sure what happened. Iona played a very good game. It was a very unusually tempoed game with the officials, and with our 4th game in 8 days, we didn't quite have the energy that we needed. And as I look back at it, usually after a tough loss like that, you'll look and say we weren't ready, we didn't play hard, we didn't take them seriously. I'm not so sure that there's not a game every year that you have to just chalk up and just say, hey, shake your head, and we probably won't see that the rest of the year. And I'd be surprised if we looked so out of sorts as we did in that game. We had several players that were battling a flu bug throughout finals. Every day we've gone without a certain player, a different player each time that's got, you know, has got a sickness or an ailment that they aren't able to practice. And so it got us with the 4th game in 8 days. And in the future, with scheduling, you understand that's going to happen. We're going to have 4 games in 8 days, but hopefully that you know some of the games that are a little bit easier on your schedule, you'll be able to conclude with that.
All right, well, you talked about 4 games in 8 days, and obviously that you need to do a better job of scheduling. I'm going to ask you the question that you may or may not be able to politically answer, but
sure,
give your best shot at it.
Yep.
Does it have anything to do with the Dunkin' Donuts Center and available dates?
Well, no. I mean, every school in the Big East and you know, school that doesn't have their own facility is going to battle certain dates. And so without having your own facility, sure, that's going to be a factor, but we can do a better job in our scheduling. It's got to be done 2-3 years in advance of this is the date. These dates we need to play. Here's where we're going to go on the road.
Can you do that, though, as a co-tenant in that building with the Providence Bruins? I mean, because I realize they have more dates, more numbers than you, which is probably why they're up at the top of the priority list. But this has been a long, ongoing problem ever since the Bruins franchise came to Providence, where Providence College used to be the sole tenant in that building other than some of the shows that came through. Now you're a co-tenant. So I'm wondering, because, and I'm not denigrating them at all, I'm not blaming them, they've got to have a place to play. It's better for us as a city and as a market to have, you know, a co-tenant like that where the building's full and people are involved and we've got money going through the city. But does it make it tougher on you? I mean, it seems to every year.
It's nicer to blame somebody else than yourself, you know. But I think, sure, it's tough. But we're not unlike a lot of other schools that run into the same kind of problems, but we can do a better job. And so we can't focus our time on what we can't do and problems with that, but how can we make our schedule better? How can we have better road games? How can we have better nationally televised games? How can we have a better RPI when we go in some year where we don't have a great team, but we have a good team, and we watch, you know, the Sunday selection show, and we don't have to fall back on last year and say, well, why is our RPI so low? We tied West Virginia with a 10-8 record for 7th in the conference. Why are we a 5 seed in the NIT, and why are they a 6 seed in the NCAA? And so that comes back on scheduling, and you can't wait till the last minute to schedule. And so we're being very proactive in that. And so at the end, we might fall short some year, but it's not going to be because we didn't have a plan and a well thought out one at that. So